Are Florida State still the kings of the ACC? Very interesting kickoff coming in Dublin this weekend. And I think it's a really critical season for the ACC. But really, moreover, I think this is one of the most important seasons in the history of Florida State football. And I say that because of all the litigation, all the noise, all the nonsense going on around Florida State football that, frankly, is ugliness. It's bad for college football. I don't think anybody disputes that. But if Florida State does not have a successful season on the field, it feels like it is even worse. It feels like it ratchets up to another level. And frankly, I don't see any way that Florida State does not win the ACC. I think you're going to have some real contenders coming out of the conference. I think very certainly Miami is a program that you've got to keep your eye on. There is no doubt about the fact that Virginia Tech is experienced and is going to be a very tough out this year. But Florida State should be at least a game better than everybody else. They're probably a one-loss team this year at 11-1. I would be stunned if this team doesn't win the ACC. But again, I think it's about a lot more than just winning a conference for Florida State. After all of the drama of last year, to miss the college football playoffs this year would just be unthinkable. It would be the worst eventual outcome. But Jake, is there any way in your mind that happens?
No, I don't think so. I think that Florida State should be well into the playoff this year. I think Florida State is I just don't know how you pick anyone else to be better than them in that conference right now. And it's unfortunate because Dabo and Clemson really should be better, but obviously he hasn't kind of made that switch in that turn and leaned into NIL in the portal. So he's, I think they're paying the price for that right now. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone's really high on Miami this year. So I feel like, people want to put them in a double-digit win season this year. And I feel like we're kind of putting them on this pedestal only to have them disappoint us with an 8-win season instead of an 11-win season or 12-win season. So, yeah, I think Florida State is definitely the king of the ACC, if you will. They're definitely the best team in the conference. But I do think this thing with injury and how deep are these teams? Because, when we've talked about the other conferences this week, what have we talked about? Hey, Georgia and Bama and Ohio State and Oregon and all these other teams in Utah, and they all have depth at key skill positions. And so, Florida State is gonna compete in the college football playoff this year. They need to stay healthy. They need to be smart about, getting their quarterback out of games when they're ahead. They need to make sure that they take care of their personnel, because ultimately it doesn't matter 9 times out of 10 how much you win by if you're going to win your conference. Because again, conference champions have that auto bid into the college football playoff. So if you're in a position to win the ACC, there's really no reason why you should be trying to win games by 60 points.
Yeah, I think this is all about Florida State's redemption tour. I honestly think that's the whole 9 yards. I look at their schedule. Their schedule's not overwhelmingly difficult. I look at, obviously, I'm not a believer in Clemson. I don't think Dabo has the goods. I look at Virginia Tech with all that experience coming back. And I look at what Mario Cristobal has on the line this year. I mean, this is an absolute make or break season. Historically speaking, if Miami Hurricane football tanks this year, this could be the end of football at Miami. And I'm not even being dramatic or joking. You look at the climate in SoFlo, and you're starting to understand that there's not a whole lot of money just floating around. And if Miami Hurricane football is irrelevant, I don't think it can survive in its current form. I think this is an incredibly important season for Miami Hurricane football. And I just think Florida State's better. Having looked at them and you look at their schedule doesn't seem daunting to me. Georgia Tech is going to be an interesting look early in the season. Obviously that game is Saturday in Dublin. I think it'll be very interesting. It's a 10 a.m. game, noon Eastern. It'll be really interesting to see how those teams come out. But I mean, is there anybody who believes that Georgia Tech can win that game?
No.
I wouldn't think so. And then it's Boston College, Memphis, Cal, at SMU. SMU's a very interesting player in this conference. They're talented, but they're probably the most ready team of the newbies in the ACC, I would think. But is there anybody who believes that Preston Stone is as beautiful as Oak State James says his phallic symbol is? Is there anybody who believes that Preston Stone can carry that team to the top of the conference? I do not. I don't. And I think that's one of their more interesting games. Clemson, but that game's in Tallahassee.
Should be a win.
Duke at Miami is potentially their only loss of the season, in my opinion. I don't think they're losing to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame, as I've said, is a hype machine this year. I think if Florida State loses more than a game, I would be surprised.
Yeah, and you should be surprised if they lose more than a game. And that's where I think the events of last season, kind of play into the redemption tour this year. I think you're spot on with that. I think Florida State wants their revenge. They want to get into the college football playoff and they want it decided on the football field. And I'm still a firm believer that they have nothing on big time SEC teams. They don't deserve to be on the same field as Ohio State or, the top tier teams in the country. But again, if you are a conference champion and you get that matchup, you're going to have your day, right? I mean, that's how the system works. So like I said, I think it all hinges on them winning the conference. If you somehow mess it up and you're a 2-loss team instead of a 1-loss team, that's where I think things get murky, because 2-loss non-conference champion team Florida State, now you're right back where you were last year, where you're having to compete to get into the college football playoff with those 7 other at-large, bids. So that I think is very murky water, but I would agree. I'd be very surprised if Florida State was not a 1-loss team.
It would be a shocking disappointment.
Yeah.
For Florida State to lose multiple games. And I understand they have that Miami, Notre Dame, portion of their schedule, but come on. I mean, you look at the talent on this team and you look at the way they've dominated the ACC. Can that continue? Probably not. They're not going undefeated in the conference this year. But their offensive line, should be really, really good. You look at their defense, obviously rushing the passer with Jared Verse, that's going to be a huge loss. And you're going to have to figure out how to replace his production and impact on the field, because Jared Verse was a disruptor. And we talked about him on the show regularly. And I look at their level of talent and look at where their schedule lies. North Carolina is not going to be good, is the wrong word. North Carolina is not going to be one of the elites in the ACC this year.
Competitive at the top of the table.
They're going to backslide.
Yeah.
Which you understand. Again, you put a guy at the top of the draft, you're gonna backslide. But I think I can't imagine Florida State going to Dallas and losing.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no reason for them to lose multiple games. I mean, there's literally nobody in the conference who should be able to put up a legitimate fight. Now, are they going to be in some close games? Sure. But again, when Soccer Writer in Minnesota, is reviewing their resume at the end of the year, all they're going to be looking at is wins and losses. So to me, again, Florida State has the opportunity to put all this to bed by simply winning the conference. Win the conference, and you don't have to talk about the college football playoff. You're in. That's all you got to do. And as far as Miami is concerned, if I'm Miami, my sole mission is to try to go out and win this conference. Now, obviously, nobody expects them to win the ACC, but if you could somehow find a way to knock off Florida State and make it a conversation in, I don't know, October, like late October, if it could still be a conversation of who's going to win the ACC, I think that is exactly what Miami wants.
But again, DJ Uiagalelei is going to have to play with a chip on his shoulder. And I think when you're replacing somebody like Jordan Travis and you look at what DJ's done, I mean, was there a better recruit for Dabo at the time than DJ Uiagalelei? Is there a recruit that's gone worse than that in recent memory? Not really. Not for a quarterback who then goes on and was pretty goddamn solid at Oregon State, right? And now is at Florida State. I think that DJ has something to prove. And I think frankly, I would hope that he's got October 5th schedule that circled on his schedule.
Well, he's one of those guys where this season's kind of his make or break type season where, if you have any ambitions of playing in the league, you have to ball out this year. You have to prove that, hey, like you're not just an average, fourth rounder.
Well, I'm also curious what Malik Benson turns into. I mean, he was a 0 at Alabama. And I mean, obviously when you lose, I mean, you look at the production they lost at wide receiver at Florida State. Dude, it's tough when you're losing Keon Coleman. And I mean, that's a lot of production to replace, but they're loaded at wide receiver. And if Malik Benson comes in and does what he was supposedly capable of doing, forget it. They're going to be, again, I think they're 30 points a game. I think you fall out of bed in the ACC as an elite team and you probably score 30.
Well, and I think that's the thing about kids who come out of Alabama and Georgia specifically, and even when you come out of that program and you transfer to Florida State, let's say, or another program that maybe is a slight step down, but you have a lot more opportunity, like the stuff that he would have learned at Alabama, the experience he has is going to help him at Florida State. And I think that's where I say, hey, like, it's not that Florida State's terrible. Yeah. I just don't think we know how good they can be. Can DJ be better than Jordan Travis was? Obviously, before the injury, is the top end higher? Like who? I doubt it. But who is the person that's going to fill the Keon Coleman role? Because what we're finding out is that Keon Coleman obviously had established himself as their big playmaker guy last year, but he's proving that he is that guy now in the league with the Bills, obviously. So.
Shaquille Douglas, with 17 yards a catch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be good. And you look at Hakeem Williams, who's really fast. I think their schedule sets up. I would also point out Florida State does not play Louisville this year, which I think I think Louisville's probably in that second cut of teams in the ACC. Not having them on their schedule, I think, is probably good. Their road games, what stands out to me is that Miami, Notre Dame, North Carolina stretch. It's at Miami, North Carolina, at Notre Dame. That's probably going to determine their season.
Now, a lot of people are disagreeing with you about Notre Dame. They're saying that, hey, Notre Dame is a college football playoff team, and they're really good.
Riley Leonard's got to stay healthy.
Agreed.
And we can sit here and we can go all around the merry-go-round, and we can pretend that, it's Notre Dame. Well, they put a shamrock on their helmet and everybody falls down and begs them to score touchdowns, because that's not the truth anymore.
So my point is, and I agree with you, he needs to stay healthy. But my point is, when you're looking at their schedule, if Notre Dame and Riley Leonard somehow stay healthy and are a good team, now you've got Notre Dame, you've got Miami, and then is there a third game in there where they just don't show up, where they have that off week? That's what I'm saying. That if you're a Florida State fan, that's where you have to say, hey, like, we have to avoid that game. Because I remember last fall, we were sitting up in Park City at a bar. We're watching Florida State and Clemson before Jordan Travis suffers the major injury, obviously. And Florida State's supposed to be this college football playoff powerhouse squad. And they're struggling to beat Clemson. Like, they only put Clemson away with about 7 minutes left in the fourth. Like, it was tight. It was a field goal game until the fourth quarter. So that's what I'm saying, where I would like to see Florida State be a little more commanding this year. Be a little more like, hey, if Florida State's going to be that team that wants to go on the redemption tour and wants to, say, hey, we told you so, we are that team, you need to manhandle squads like Clemson. You need to manhandle, UNC, Duke, like your main competition in the ACC. If you are that team, you'll dominate those guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to understand why isn't Notre Dame overhyped every year? And I'm a Notre Dame fan. I am a passionate Notre Dame fan. Grew up in Chicago. I think anybody that watches this show knows that. But I look at this team. They're built on defense, and in college football, you can't win like that. In my opinion, you can not in today's world where you look at Georgia. Georgia had the best defense in the country last year, which is why they won the national champ. Oh wait, that's right, they didn't.
No.
Michigan. How did Michigan win games? Michigan won games with the offensive and the defensive line.
Yeah.
I look at Texas. Texas won games with that offense. I look at, I mean, you
Ohio State.
Ultimately, Ohio State didn't win games because they didn't have the goods on offense.
Yeah.
I understand Notre Dame has what is a really good defense. I'm with you on that. But Riley Leonard, in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, is an elite quarterback or has shown the ability to stay healthy. And I look at Florida State, DJ Uiagalelei versus Riley Leonard. It's not even an argument. What we saw from DJ last year was elite quarterback play. And if he brings that to Tallahassee, dude, I think their schedule sets up for Florida State to be very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida State's that team that always finds themselves, I think what you were pointing out, in close games that shouldn't be close games.
Yeah. You let people hang around.
And eventually that comes back to get you.
Because what ends up happening, and I love DJ Uiagalelei, but what ends up happening? A guy like him's going to throw an untimely pick. There's going to be a mistake there, or something's going to happen that wasn't in your plan, and that's going to cause you to lose a game you probably shouldn't lose. And that's why I'm saying, like, I think that's the next evolution of Florida State this year is like, hey, if you want to prove people and stick it to people, then stick it to people. Like, hey, we're going to drop a 30 piece in the first half against most of these teams on our schedule. And if we don't drop 30, we're dropping 27, and then we're dropping another 20 in the second half.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just this league in the ACC, I think I just don't see the elite depth. And I think I think it's Florida State. I think Florida State's better than everybody else. But if you go back and you look at the rest of this league, there's a group in the middle, the Clemsons, Louisville's in that group. I think, how good is Virginia Tech? Doesn't Virginia Tech have the most returning upperclassmen of any team in the country, I believe the stat was. Their schedule, when you're playing, when you are playing quite literally the only elite team on Virginia Tech's schedule, and this is why I think they may find themselves near the top. At Vanderbilt, Marshall, which is on the C-Dub, by the way, so everybody will see it. Old Dominion, Rutgers, Miami, in Miami.
Huge game.
At Stanford, well, the travel, that's a cross-country trip, to immediately turn around and go into Boston College, Georgia Tech, at Syracuse, Clemson, at Duke, Virginia. That's not a difficult schedule.
No, that's a one-loss schedule.
And I think that one loss is probably Miami on September 27th, which if you're going to lose in September. Do not lose in October or November.
You can't. I understand the travel piece. You can't lose to Stanford if you're anybody. If you're any kind of football team, you can't lose to Stanford.
Yeah. And again, I think Louisville's good, not great, but Louisville's schedule, obviously, as I said, does not include Florida State. Their road games are at Notre Dame on September 28th. And Notre Dame, I think, does not play a single road game this year.
Notre Dame, our mother.
At Notre Dame, at Virginia, at Boston College, at Clemson, at Stanford, at Kentucky. They may lose one road game this year. It's probably Clemson. Their home game of the year is Miami on October 19th. Because I don't, and I know this is probably going to freak people out because Pitt fans seem to be very ravenous. I don't have much hope for Pitt this year. I don't have much hope for Virginia. Wake Forest is going to be a bottom of the conference team.
Certainly.
But I think there is going to be, like Cal. I think Cal's going to be one of those teams in that bunch in the middle. I think there's maybe 2, possibly 3 really good teams in this league if Virginia Tech wins those games.
I think it's Florida is the top cut.
Florida
number
State.
1. Or Florida State, I'm sorry. Florida State is head and shoulders the best team in the conference. I think Miami and Vatech are right next to each other.
I think Miami could be okay. Let's play Miami real quick.
Yeah.
Is Miami a 1-loss team? Their schedule seemingly says they're a 3-loss team. At Florida a week from now,
they'll win that game.
Florida A&M, yeah, it's a national TV game. I think that's a toss-up. Florida A&M, Ball State at South Florida, Virginia Tech at Cal at Louisville, Florida State, Duke at Georgia Tech, Wake at Syracuse. I think that's a 2-loss schedule, because I think that you are going to have your hands full at Louisville on October 19th. Florida State, that's a make or break game for both of them. It's the week of Halloween. That could be a loss. That would be 2.
Well, look how much heat that game would have, though. If let's say that Miami, was undefeated headed into that game, I mean, that game would have incredible heat.
It could be. I don't know. My point is, I think this conference is deeper this year. Is it, is Florida State still the best team? I think they are. Well, I think that they certainly are, and I think they will be until someone unseats them. And I think that Mario Cristobal has always been a head coach that has, sort of led his teams to be gritty, physical teams. That's what I've known. That's what I knew his Oregon teams for. And I think that I would expect Miami with their talent to be gritty, to be physical, and to kind of be that, to kind of live up to that brand in a sense. I mean, that's what the great Miami teams were always like that back in the day, where you were looking to hurt somebody. And I'm not saying they're looking to injure players, but they're looking to send a message. And I think that is how you beat Mike Norvell, Florida State. You hit them, you get physical with them, and you send that message. So again, if Miami somehow doesn't lose to Virginia Tech and Louisville before they play Florida State, that has maybe second cut game of the year vibes. That could be a big game. All right, go ahead and hit the like button, please, as we get to the comments section, as always, presented by our good friends at Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Download the app. It is by far the easiest way to get Prize Picks on your phone. On a hot streak, another winner last night. I'm telling you, if you're playing Prize Picks baseball, Aaron Judge is where it's at, and Seiya Suzuki of the Chicago Cubs, pretty good. Won again with Seiya, even though, don't get me started on the Cubs. It's depressing. It is truly depressing. But Seiya last night gives me the 2 for 4, which was all I needed. And then the White Sox won a game, which I thought was very interesting because, they don't often do that. Once out of every 20-something games.
First team, all 60 games under 500. And
I was all in on Logan Webb yesterday. I had him at 4.5 strikeouts more. He gave me 6.
Nice. Love it.
8 innings, 6 Ks. It's a winning formula.
8 innings. That's a nice outing.
So what I would tell you is Prize Picks is very easy to play. It's not complicated. It's the best daily fantasy app, in my opinion. It's why tens of millions of people use Prize Picks every single day, because Logan Webb, 4.5 strikeouts, more or less. That's the question you answer on every one of your selections. Last night it was Aaron Judge. And I was choosing between 0.5 home runs more or less, or total bases. I took total bases because I think his total bases were 2.5. So I took total bases. Seiya Suzuki's total bases were 1.5. I took more. I went 3 for 3. Here's the formula on Prize Picks. 3 selections. Today I'm going to do 2 plays. PGA, the PGA playoffs are here. So I'm going to do a golf one. And I'm going to probably do another Major League Baseball one.
How about just one quick note on the FedEx Cup? How about the fact that they're playing this thing at 6,200 feet? If I'm correct,
You can also play Prize Picks at 6,200 feet. You don't need to get to sea level to play Prize Picks. Download the app. Use the promo code Monty. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your great take about altitude and the golf ball to finish up the business of the show or anything. Why don't you go ahead?
No, go ahead, dude. Go ahead.
Let me single you up there.
No,
go
you
ahead.
don't want to do that.
Stay hard.
I'm good, dude.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. MONTY Monty. You deposit $5. Prize Picks will give you 50 more. It's the single best daily fantasy promotion I've ever seen. And I've been doing daily fantasy for over 10 years. What is this, 2024? 11 years I've been doing, 2013. And this is the best promotion I've ever seen. You make a $5 deposit into a new account at Prize Picks, they'll give you 50 more. Download the app. All you have to do is use the promo code Monty on YouTube. If you're watching on the old X machine, if you were watching on Facebook, make sure you get over to YouTube, find the Monty Show, give us a subscribe. In the description of this YouTube show, there's a link. Click that link or download the app and use the promo code Monty. Deposit $5 in a new account. They'll give you 50 more. Prize Picks, America's favorite daily fantasy game.
Yeah.
Go ahead. 6,200 feet.
Yeah.
Did anybody see Rory McIlroy yesterday pull out a 50-degree wedge and hit it 156 yards? I think he hit it.
Yeah, 374 off the tee.
150. Who cares about the driver? 100 with a 50-degree? He's hitting it 150 yards with a 50-degree. I hit my pitching wedge 150 yards. A 50-degree, which I think my max on a 50-degree is like 120 on my best swing, and he's hitting it 150 plus.
Yep.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's not.
If you're not a golf fan, but you're looking to get into it, this would be a good week to watch.
It is wild to me what altitude does to a golf ball.
Yeah.
It is absolutely wild to me. All right, let's get into the comment section. Lobes fan Gabe says hit the like button. Yes, why don't you guys go ahead and hit the like button to get the party started. Well, Dade Messina. Does that mean you're from Dade County? Dade County, Florida. Wade County. Okay. Dade Messina, the newest member of the Monty Show. Appreciate you very much, Dade. Good to see you this morning. He says, you guys make ordering my trucks at work a lot easier. Ooh, what do you do for a living? So I wanted to be a member of the family. Well, thank you for supporting the show.
Appreciate you, bro.
We always appreciate that. Oh, James, do we have a Mike Gundy story for you today? Miami, Clemson, and Carolina might have something to say about. Down in North Carolina still has a few years left. The talent drop is pretty significant this year for Mac. He's going to have, I don't know, I think 4 losses is probably strong for a Mac Brown team. But I think he's in that group with SMU, NC State. He's got Florida State's on their schedule, obviously, as we talked about. But, I mean, there's Charlotte, they're North Carolina Central, James Madison, Duke, Pitt, Virginia, Wake, and Boston College. Those are all wins. I think he's probably beating Minnesota. I think Georgia Tech, Florida State, and NC State will be his 3 losses. And potentially 4. But he's in that group with Florida State. He's in that group with, they're better than Boston College. They're probably on par with SMU. NC State's probably a 2 or 3 loss team, depending on how you look at it. They've got Tennessee as a non-con. They're probably going to lose that game. Louisville, in my opinion, Louisville is a 2-loss team because I think Louisville will beat Kentucky. I think their losses are Clemson and Notre Dame. And it's going to be very interesting to see. UW fan Jim, Florida State will be second in the ACC and ranked 13th in the country. Jesus, could you imagine that? They don't win the conference championship, and they don't finish in the top 12. That would be...
Queue up a fresh lawsuit.
Yeah. And you're right, Mike Smith, their defense is missing. I mean, I think Jared Verse is one of the biggest impact losses in the country as far as attrition goes. Yeah. It's just going to be tough. Hello, Willie Wilson. Good to see you. Anthony Eason, no mention of Louisville. We talked about Louisville.
Yeah, we talked about Louisville.
Who smoked Virginia Tech 34-3 last year.
Tech's going to be a lot better this year, bro.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree. But yeah, I think Louisville is good, not great.
I mean, Louisville was a sweetheart story last year, no doubt. I mean,
but
Louisville,
they're in that. It's a very interesting build in the ACC. Couple of really good, bunch of pretty good, couple of really bad. It'll be interesting. Andy Blackwell, hello. Credit where it's due. J2H showing some real cojones, pushing through with the man flu.
Yeah, it's been a grind, bro.
I don't think it's a badge of honor when you're sick that you show up at the studio and pass it around like it's free beer. I don't know that I would be like, you know.
Okay, well, so should we just not do the show then, or?
Don't get me started. Welcome to the nightmare. When you transfer more than once, I feel like you definitely have to make your last stop a prove it season. Well, DJ Uyunglele is that guy. I assume that's who you're referencing. I think he will, and I think he will. I think he has really grown, in my opinion. So we'll see. Yes, Lopes fan Gabe, like button. Welcome to the nightmare. If Florida State loses more than one game and doesn't make it to the college football playoff, definitely a failure of a season. Overall, man. I just think it's because of the hype and the it's what I always say, man. Isn't this where Florida State has put themselves?